Good afternoon, everyone. This house will come to order. I'm pleased to welcome all of you to the national level virtual English debate competition. The motion for today's debate is that this house would criminalize all forms of deepfake content. Representing the government squad is from Pahang State. The first speaker, Ayla Georgia binti Abdullah. The second speaker is Ng Zhen, and the third speaker is Kishman Analaki Sarvanan. Have I gotten all your names correct? Okay, thank you. Speaking for the opposition will be from the Sabah district, Sabah state. The first speaker is Kian Ethan. The second, Anushka Yusa Dharmalingam. And the third speaker is Hilmi bin Sumu. On behalf of the House, I would like to extend a special welcome to the educators. The chief educator is Ms. Tan Wan Ying, and she will be assisted by Mr. Kenneth Chong and Mr. Muhammad Shafiq bin Abdul Aziz. And I, Vince Grayson, am your Speaker of the House. Before we begin, I would like to read a few important rules for today's debate. I'm sure you guys have heard it throughout the entire day. The debaters will have 8 minutes in which they will deliver their remarks and 4 minutes to deliver their reply speeches. Third debaters from both teams will not introduce any new arguments. Their role is to rebut the opponent and to defend the positions of the team. While a debater is speaking, the opposition can offer POIs or point of information. The debater may accept or decline them. After all debaters have spoken once, the first or second debater of each team will give a reply speech, with the opposition reply being delivered first, followed by the government. The timekeeper will ring the bell once after the first minute and at the end of the 7th minute to signal the time allocated for the POIs. At the end of the 8th minute, the bell will be rung twice. A maximum time of 3 minutes will be given to both teams to prepare for their reply speech. During the reply speech, the timekeeper will ring the bell once at the 3rd minute to signal the debater has 1 minute left and a second bell at 4th minute. Without further ado, I would like to call upon the first government to deliver their resolution, define its terms, and outline the government's case.
Can all of you hear me clearly? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'll start my case in 3, 2, 1. So on today's motion, this House would criminalize all forms of deepfake content. We on the government side strongly agree with this motion. So first things first, I would like to start with my characterization. So deepfake content, as was given in the motion, is a content in which a person is an existing AI is used to impersonate a person in an existing image or video. Yeah, so with someone else's likeness. For example, an influential celebrity can be impersonated with AI. So it's usually the people who get impersonated are people who are influential or people who have high standing in society. And so what is it for? So usually it's used for entertainment purposes, politics, to spread propaganda, and where is it portrayed? So usually it's on the internet or on entertainment platforms like YouTube or on social media, right? And it has a high risk of virality and it has a high risk of escalation. And on platforms like this, there's usually a diverse audience that can watch these deepfake content, right? And usually only after getting a lot of attraction, action towards these deepfake content is taken, right? So in today's debate, there would be a few stakeholders. So people who like the person being impersonated, people who don't like them, people on the fence, and the person who is being impersonated themselves, right? And next, we would like to clarify what the meaning of criminalize and how our mechanism would be to criminalize these deepfake contents. So basically, criminalize is obviously to make something illegal. And how we're going to criminalize it is by actively filtering out these content, giving repercussions to the creators of these content. So we're going to give them punishment for creating this content, and this will act as a deterrence factor that prevents them from creating content, from creating deepfake content,
POI, please, ma'am.
And impersonating these influential people. So our problem analysis would be how a deepfake content spreads misinformation, how it would create unrest and conflict in internet platforms, and how it would lead to defamation of or identity theft of the people being impersonated. So our burden of proof is that we're running a harm minimization case, and by criminalizing deepfake content, we can minimize the harm that happens on social media, and we can minimize the harms that happen we can minimize the harms on the internet, and we can minimize harm towards the people who are being impersonated. So our stance would be that although some deepfake content might not have significant harms, we still want to rule out every single possibility of harm that is being created or being produced by deepfake content being on the internet. All right, so my first argument would be the propagation of deepfake content and how its impacts. So my first layer of analysis would be on how the media and how the internet works, and the nature of virality. So what I mean by this is we've all been on the internet, right? We've all seen media and content on the internet, right? And so the internet is usually filled with a lot of people, a lot of diverse users, a lot of audience, and people who have different perspectives, different opinions, people who like certain people who don't like certain people, because the internet is so widespread, the media that gets on it is usually exposed to a high risk of escalation, and this basically leads to my analysis, which is the nature of virality. And so what I mean by this is that content on the internet all have the risk of going viral, and they can go viral really fast. So my second layer of analysis would be how fast it spreads, right? So what I mean by this is that on the internet, because of the nature of virality that exists, because there's so many people on the internet, how fast it spread is very fast. It could be within a matter of seconds, it could be within a matter of minutes, and a lot of people view it. Millions of people view it almost every day, right? So the impact of content being spread gets really bad really quick. And what I mean by this is sometimes when we see content, right, and the content isn't exactly good or bad, for example, we see our favorite influencer being impersonalized by an AI, and the impact of this can get really bad really fast because a lot of people view it, and it's going to create it's going to create a lot of different negative views on the content and the person being impersonated, which leads to my third layer of analysis, which is the harms deepfake content or viral that has gone viral would bring, right? So my first impact would be conflict and unrest online between netizens or people. And my second harm would be perception of consumers or users towards the person who is being impersonated. So the first harm that I mentioned would be conflict and unrest online between people, right? So what we mean by this is that what I would clarify, what I said earlier in the stakeholders, right? Online, there are people who like the person being impersonated, there are people who don't like, and there are people on the fence. So when a person is being impersonated, like I said earlier, it's usually for entertainment or propaganda, right? And people usually create this content either for fun or to shame them or to make them look bad, right? And so when these happens, the conflict that's going to happen is like people who like the person being impersonated will try to defend them, right? And they go like, oh, this is bad, this is not okay, this isn't right, this shouldn't be happening. While people who don't like the person being impersonated will probably be like, oh my God, this is so funny, oh my God, this is good. And it gives them another reason to bash the person, even though the content might not even be real, right? And then the creator of the content would also so, and then usually when these kind of things happen, people are going to fight with each other online. They're gonna have conflict between each other. They're gonna try and defend the person. They're gonna try and deny. They're going to try and attack the person, and there's going to be a lot of conflict and unrest between users of social media. And people who are on the fence would either be swayed to think that the person being impersonated is bad, because like I said, usually deepfake content are either for clout, for propaganda, to shame a certain person. And so my second harm would be the perception of consumers or users towards people who are being impersonated. And usually this is because the type of impersonation sometimes it's just for comedic purposes, right? And you're going to say, oh, that's not really good. We shouldn't criminalize comedy. But the thing is, we don't know how much impact this can bring back to the person who is being impersonated, right? You might just think, oh, it's funny, but it can be embarrassing, it can tarnish their reputation, and sometimes it goes beyond something comedic, right? So the perception of consumers or users towards the person who is being impersonated will change. They'll either think this person is bad, or they think this person is not smart, or they think this person isn't good. So, and this creates a lot of negativity online. And with that, I end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much, first speaker. We shall wait for the educators.
Okay, I'm good. What about Kenneth and Shafiq? Are you all ready? Okay, let's proceed.
Okay, thank you so much, educators. Again, thank you so much for the first speaker from the government. I'd like to invite the first speaker from the opposition to come to the floor.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Wonderful. Thanks.
All right. Panel, we're having a very interesting debate, are we not? With cherry-picked quotes, facts, and figures, a selection of misinformation and misquotations from the other side. Before that, salutations I bid for everybody. The motion of today's debate is this House will criminalize all forms of deep fake.
Mate, you're lagging.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you lagged out a ton, man.
Oh,
yeah, could you just like repeat from the start? Sorry,
sure, I can do that. That's completely fine.
Timekeeper, could we reset the timer? Whenever you're ready, just.
Thank you. Again, panel, we are having a very interesting debate, are we not? With cherry-picked quotes, facts, and figures, a selection of misinformation, misquotations from the other side. Before that, salutations I bid to everybody. The motion of today's debate is this House will criminalize all forms of deepfake content. As the leader of opposition today, I'll be giving you a few things. First, I'll be giving you a complete case setup, followed by the. And I'll also be giving you my arguments that would support my team's overall. So moving on to my team's case, which is this House will not criminalize all forms of deepfake content because it's impractical and there are already existing laws that criminalize very serious cases of deepfake content. So what's happening in status quo right now, panel? Now in status quo, there are already existing laws that criminalize serious deepfake content, and there are several layers that the government has failed to understand of deepfakes in status quo right now. The surface layer of deepfakes would be for entertainment and particularly just jokes made by majority of them being minors and children, right? Whereas the next layer will be more serious cases of deepfakes, i.e. fake news, impersonation, sexual content, and defamation. So what else is happening? The media already has mechanisms to detect deepfakes, i.e. fake news. Why should the government criminalize all forms of deepfake content when it's already happening in status quo right now? So today's debate is not whether we should criminalize deepfake content. No, today's debate is whether or not we should criminalize all forms of deepfake content. So side government has to prove to us how criminalizing all forms of deepfake content will do our society just. Whereas side opposition, we have the burden to prove that status quo is enough and why we should not criminalize all forms of deepfake content. So moving on to my rebuttals of the Prime Minister. Their case is some deepfake content isn't serious, hence we just want to deter the whole entire, we just want to deter the whole deepfake content as a whole, right? That's what they want to do. By the way, I accept all the definitions given, that's completely fine. So then she brings up her mechanism on how they would effectively filter, how they are going to give punishments to the people, but she hasn't really specified what type of punishments. That's what I wanted to POI her just now, but she really didn't want to accept it. So how will they punish? Are you going to be punishing minors that just want to do it for entertainment, because you are criminalizing them for all types of deepfake content, right? All types. So moving on to our first point, which would be the propagation and its impacts and how viral it goes and the impacts, the negative views it will get. Panel, fails to realize that there are good content and there are good and bad content out there, right? And hence there are users of deepfake content that are certainly just for entertainment purposes only. And she even agreed that there are good and bad content out there and that use deepfakes. So why would you want to criminalize those who use deepfakes for entertainment? Why would you do that? She even said it can be bad, but she did not prove to us how it would tarnish their reputation as a whole and how it will harm them. So panel, moving on to my first argument, which is not all deepfake content is harmful. Accept it.
The definition of entertainment is really different to certain people. Like, for example, if we see Queen Elizabeth dancing naked, it would be funny for certain people, but however, it is a damage to her reputation as a whole, as a sovereign of a country.
Exactly, it is subjective, right? So why would you want to criminalize those who just find it subjectively funny in the first place? So, like I've said, panel, what do I mean by not all deepfake content is harmful? So, like I've said before, there are several layers to deepfake content, and there are deepfake content that isn't harmful. Panel, here's an analogy: a chef knife, right? A chef knife can be used to cook, but that same chef knife could also be used to kill someone. So, should we criminalize everybody who uses this chef knife? You see, this is what side government is doing in today's debate. They are using all forms of deepfake content as a scapegoat, panel. No matter how good, no matter how bad it is, they're saying let's just criminalize everyone who does that, right? Who uses deepfake content as a whole. So that's why side opposition today comes up with the case line that we shouldn't criminalize all forms of deepfake content because it's just impractical, because there are already existing laws that criminalize very serious cases of deepfake content. Which side government? There are benefits that come out, right? That's i.e. entertainment that side government chooses to ignore or smear in order to desperately win today's debate. Moving on to my second argument, which is the impracticality of criminalizing all forms of deepfake content. So this is linking to my team's case line, which is how it is impractical and this indirectly engages with their mechanism, right? So how will the government criminalize every single person on the internet that uses deepfake content, right? How will they do it? They haven't proved to us. They give us a mechanism of actively filtering, but what are the punishments? What are the repercussions that we will see? How will this deter the whole usage, of deepfake contents as a whole? They have not proven to us. They have not proven this to us in today's debate. So let's just say, right, panel, for the sake of argument, I want to place my face on Michael B. Jordan's body. Right? Because, well, will the government send officers to my house just because I wanted to make a joke, just because I wanted to look good on a good-looking actor? Right? Exactly. Will my reputation, will my records be ruined just because I wanted to envision myself on a body of a good-looking actor? Is this why not prove to us why do this in the first place? So panel, what have I been telling you for the past 6 minutes, right? 7 minutes. I have told you how not all deepfake content is harmful. I have told you how it's impractical to criminalize all forms of content, hence why my team brings up this case, which is this House will not criminalize all forms of deepfake content because it's impractical and there are already existing laws of deepfake content. With this panel, I am proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First speaker from the opposition. Let's wait for the educators.
I'm good. Shafiq, Kenneth, are you ready?
Okay, thank you so much, educators. Thank you so much. First speaker from the opposition party again. Maybe invite second speaker from the government to speak.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're Crystal.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Side government really doesn't care about what happens to them, but however, they need to realize their position as not really an influential figure, right? So imagine if side opposition's first speaker was something like a CEO of a big corporation, right? And he really wants to have some fun and put his face on Michael B. Jordan's body. However, what would happen if that picture, if that deepfake content is actually used on porn sites? What would actually happen to your reputation? So we think that this is what we are actually talking about today. We're talking about how these deepfake content, even if it is used for entertainment, even if it does seem harmless at first, we want to rule out every possibility that would tarnish people's reputation. And we believe that this is what we're fighting for at the end of the day. Why do we want to criminalize all forms of deepfake content? It's because that these deepfake contents, right? People of a right mind, right, wouldn't really want to make deepfake content about themselves because it's not going to get a lot of clout at the end of the day. We believe that people who make deepfake content will make it about influential figures, who make it about people of a high status, such as Queen Elizabeth, such as President Donald Trump or President Biden. At the end of the day, we believe that these people are of very much significance, and we believe that we don't want this kind of defamation or misinformation to be spread about them, right? And side opposition really talks about how it's going to be subjectively funny to some people, right? As I've POI'd him just now about talking about how maybe like Queen Elizabeth dancing naked would be subjectively funny to some people, as said by side opposition. However, it would jeopardize her role and her position as a sovereign of a country. How it would ruin the whole image of the UK as a whole, and how it would tarnish her reputation as a sovereign at the end of the day. We think that this is a thing that we need to actually prevent from happening at the end of the day. Side opposition has to actually take up the burden of actually making people's lives harder, and you are actually making their lives a lot worse at the end of the day. They don't care about the people, right? Side opposition doesn't care about the people, and they don't care about the consumers. They don't care about the creators at the end of the day. That is what side opposition is doing here today. They really want to have more freedom for people. However, they don't realize the consequences that brings us to. Right. So number 2, they ask us what type of punishments we will give people, right? We believe that whatever sort of punishments would be okay. We can suspend their accounts. We can give fines to them. We can bring them to court to actually impose some fines to them, or give them some suspensory period or something like that. We think that whatever punishments that are suitable, that's equivalent to what they are doing, is enough. And number 3, they talked about how the media already has mechanisms to filter out these deepfake contents. However, we believe that it's not enough, because in our constantly evolving cyberspace today, we believe that these deepfake contents are getting even harder to actually filter out today. So why is it important to criminalize it? When we criminalize something, we get the government on our side, we get the government agencies on our side, we get the best of the countries of these cyber agencies on our side, and we will be able to get more resources to filter out these kind of deepfake contents that are even harder for these media themselves to actually filter out in the first place. That is what we want to do at the end of the day, right? Side opposition actually needs to carry out the burden on how, without criminalizing all forms of deepfake content, they can prevent this sort of backlashes from happening at the end of the day. Moving on to my first argument about how about the necessity of criminalization on our side, right? Number one, so my first layer of analysis is this: the moment it's considered a criminal activity, these people would actually realize about the detrimental effects of these deepfake contents, even if it's not intentional at the end of the day. We can see that on online world, right? We can see that people who post stuff that seem harmless in the first place can prove to be super detrimental to people and will even lead people to kill themselves at the end of the day. We don't want that to happen. However, side opposition is okay with that happening, right? So number two, with this necessity of criminalization, right, we're actually giving a bigger deterrence factor for people to create these deepfake contents, right? Because they will be less likely to attempt to take the risk of having been issued to court and having actually suffering the burdens or having to actually tarnishing their records, right? And side opposition seems to be talking about how, oh, we don't want to tarnish the records of minors who do intentionalist things, right? However, this is what we want to do today. We want to bring awareness to the fact that these deepfake content, the creation of these deepfake content is very detrimental, even if it's about them at the end of the day. We think that this fear of getting punished, of getting actually brought into court, is a really good deterrence factor at the end of the day. Number two, when you actually criminalize something, you have access to government. Yeah, sure.
So you still haven't elaborated how you're going to bring the already probably millions of people making deepfakes to court. Are you really going to send 3-year-olds to the slammer just because they thought it'd be funny to put someone's face?
3-year-olds wouldn't use AI, I would say. I would see this as it's really impossible for a 3-year-old to be able to use AI, because artificial intelligence is another thing entirely. It is a really complex system where you need to actually gain a lot of access to certain programs, and it's not really that easy to do so. Side opposition lives in a world where they think that 1-year-olds would be able to use AI, which is impossible at the end of the day, right? Even if 3-year-olds were able to actually use this AI content, right, we still think that it is necessary for them to get punishments if it's maybe it's to their parents or whatnot, right? Okay, number two, yeah, on side opposition, right, when they talk about how it's okay for these people, for these minors to actually create deepfake content, they're basically saying that it's okay to take drugs if you only take it on your own. It's basically okay to take drugs if you don't give it to other people. However, we think that that is not the case, because it will still affect people, right? And number three, moving on to my third layer of analysis of how it is necessary for criminalization to occur. So like we're saying that basically what the message we're sending out today is the fact that impersonation is wrong entirely. We don't want any sort of impersonation to actually happen on social media, because it is such a very it's such a place where these things can go viral really easily, and that's not what we want to be fighting for today. And with criminalization, even if these deepfake contents exist, it would exist in the deep web, right? They would be less likely to be shared online, and it would less likely be detrimental to these potential figures, usually political figures or popular figures at the end of the day. And we believe that there's no alternatives to do it. You need to criminalize all forms of deepfake content. Yeah, so number two, moving on to my second argument of the day, which is how we want to preserve the authenticity and the reputation of these figures who are being impersonated at the end of the day. So number one, my first layer of analysis is this: we want to prevent backlash to the person being impersonated. For example, President Biden, if someone makes a deepfake content about him supporting racism, it will be really detrimental for the whole country as a whole, and we don't want that to happen. And although side government seems to, sure.
So you keep talking about influential figures, but you're forgetting that influential figures like Joe Biden will be subject to scrutiny either way.
Yeah, okay, fine. They will be subject to scrutiny over there. However, it is they themselves who are taking the actions and taking their consequences. It is not someone else impersonating President Joe Biden and propagating racism, which he doesn't even support in the first place, right? So we don't want that to happen. We want to minimize the harm. Since they're already in scrutiny, why do you want to give them more scrutiny in the first place, right? We want to minimize the harm at the end of the day. And we think that these big backlashes is really actually very detrimental, and it might even ruin people's careers career at the end of the day. For example, these celebrities or potential political figures at the end of the day. So what we want to do today, by criminalizing all forms of deepfake content, even if it's subjectively funny, we believe that we are actually giving protection to these influential figures at the end of the day. And we also want to safeguard the future of influential figures, their position as an influential figure, and we want to actually still allow them to be able to, do things that are considered actually beneficial to the society as a whole. We don't want to jeopardize these politics into threat. We don't want to deter them from actually ever existing on social media at the end of the day, just because the deepfake content exists that ruins their reputation. And with that, we believe that our case should stand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Second speaker from the government. We will wait for the educators again.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay, Shafiq's good. Kenneth, all right, cool. Let's go on.
All right, thank you, all educators. I'd like to call upon to the floor, second speaker from the opposition party.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 30 minutes, I've been listening to this whole debate. Side government has failed to fulfill the burden of proof, which is that they have to prove to us how criminalizing all forms of deepfake content will do our society just. Ladies and gentlemen, side government has completely ignored the key word to this motion, that we are going to criminalize all forms. Ladies and gentlemen, they have failed to acknowledge that. Now, let me ask you a simple question to get this ball rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you a simple fact. Obesity kills, right? So should we criminalize everyone who eats? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the picture that side government is painting in today's debate, ladies and gentlemen. Now, before I forget, salutations I bid to members of the floor. As the deputy opposition leader for today's debate, I'll be doing two things for today, ladies and gentlemen, only two simple things. The first thing I'll be doing is I'll be refuting side government's false claims on the motion. And the second thing is I'll be providing side opposition's winning arguments and showing you how we fulfilled our burden of proof and why we've already won today's motion, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's talk about, before I get into the rebuttals, let me just reaffirm my team's stand on the motion that we believe that this House will not criminalize all forms of deepfake content because it is impractical and there are already existing laws that will criminalize very serious forms of deepfake content that is more feasible and targeted instead of a blanket policy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you're wondering, what is our burden of proof? Let me remind you again what side government is going to prove to you in today's debate. We're going to prove to you how criminalizing all forms of deepfake content will do that the status quo is enough and why we should not criminalize all forms of deepfake content. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me talk about side government's case structure. Let's talk about that first. Now, they mentioned that in their case line that accepted.
Are you saying that impersonation is good? It's justifiable?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have never mentioned that it is justifiable. And in fact, in my case line, we've actually mentioned that we will criminalize these people, but we will not be criminalizing all forms of deepfake content. This shows that side government has not been listening to a word we have said, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about all forms here, ladies and gentlemen, and the mechanism is completely weak, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's talk about the case line. They said that although some content is bad, the side government still wants to rule out every single piece of content. Ladies and gentlemen, this case line is already weak from the beginning, and then they come and tell us that their mechanism is to actively filter content to punish people without being specific about the punishments, and they said that it would act as a deterrence factor. Ladies and gentlemen, how is this even practical? Are we going to just criminalize billions and billions, millions and millions of people who have fun on the internet? Children, ladies and gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, they talk about deterrence. Now, panel, let me remind you again that it won't deter people. Reality is people will always be doing this, whether we criminalize it or not. So are we just going to arrest everybody, even those who are not doing any harm on the internet? Accepted.
So since everyone is not going to stop doing drugs, right? Are we going to just stop catching people who do drugs?
Ladies and gentlemen, that POI is completely out of this debate. This is about all forms of deepfake content, and they're talking about drugs. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not waste any of my time talking about an analogy that doesn't even relate to the motion at hand. Now let's talk about what the second speaker of Sai government has said. Now he talked about porn sites, right? Ladies and gentlemen, our case line has already mentioned this before. If it violates other laws that already exist, aside opposition are not just going to let these people go. Our main for today, ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to criminalize all forms of deepfake. Now, they also spoke about influential figures, right? Ladies and gentlemen, so should we criminalize everybody then, even those who are just having fun? Reality is a lot of regular people use deepfake. So should we criminalize everybody, even if it is harmless? Ladies and gentlemen, we already have existing laws that criminalize defamation, etc. When he talked about Queen Elizabeth, ladies and gentlemen, exactly, we are saying that these people are actually able to be penalized for their actions, but we shouldn't penalize people who are just being harmless on the internet. Now, ladies and gentlemen, he also POI'd us about how entertainment is subjective and some people don't find certain things as funny. Ladies and gentlemen, this is completely rebuttable by a case line. Yes, we agree that entertainment is subjective, but at the end of the day, there's a line between very harmful content and very harmless content. If it is harmful, ladies and gentlemen, then we under the status quo, which we already mentioned in our case line. Now, he also mentioned how criminalization is important. He has failed to mention that he has failed to fulfill the burden of proof and explain why we should criminalize all forms, ladies and gentlemen. How many times do I have to say this? Now, he also mentioned that children should be punished either way. Now, ladies and gentlemen, they mentioned that they are such a caring government. Such a caring government would punish little children that don't know the repercussions of their actions. Now, they also mentioned that it will preserve the authenticity and reputation of people. Ladies and gentlemen, public figures will be scrutinized either way. People with power can take action whenever they want. Now, let's also talk about, ladies and gentlemen, since I'm running out of time, let's talk about the main argument that I'm going to bring to the table today. We're going to talk about the advantages of deepfake. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many advantages to deepfake, right? There's education, medicine, entertainment. Now, in education, especially in the pandemic, when we are using everything online, it helps teachers in engaging lessons, bring historical figures to life, which makes the lessons more interesting. It is an effective learning tool. This is just an example, ladies and gentlemen. Now, especially during the pandemic, right? So are we going to limit the creativity of those with innovative and pure intentions? Are we just going to criminalize everybody because we want to be safe? Ladies and gentlemen, any other benefits, like in the entertainment industry, right? Let's talk about Paul Walker. He passed away, right? But they were able to bring his character back to life with to throw that all out of the window because side government cannot just wants a blanket policy that will not solve the actual issue at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, deepfake, again, like what my first speaker said, deepfake is like a knife. Just because knives could be dangerous, should we criminalize everybody who owns a knife, right? Everything in this world could be dangerous when misused, but should we criminalize everybody, even when the benefits outweigh the detriments? And even if a case of deepfake is detrimental, right? Let's go back to the case line. We already have existing laws to punish people accordingly instead of using a blanket policy that might unnecessarily punish people for being harmless. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the same with smartphones. I can spread misleading information online, but does that mean we should criminalize everybody with a smartphone? But because that's what side government sounds like to me. And at the same time, this is why laws like defamation, bullying, harassment exist to make sure that platforms are used properly. Should we just criminalize everybody with a smartphone, even when they helped us evolve as people, education-wise, communication-wise, etc.? Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I end my speech, I would like to reaffirm my team's stand on the motion that we believe that this House should not criminalize all forms of deepfake content because it is impractical and there are already existing laws that criminalize very serious forms of cases of deepfake content that is more feasible and targeted instead of a blanket policy. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to eat, and I'm sure you do too. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I proudly oppose to the motion.
Thank you so much for the wonderful debate, all the remarks given. We'll just wait for the educators right now.
Okay, I'm ready. Yep. All right, let's proceed.
Thank you so much, educators. Now we would like to invite the third government speaker to the floor. Third government speaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
My speech will start In 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that side opposition today has benefited by using many kind of far-fetched analogies in their language that are kind of blocks the harm and kind of blurs the harms that deepfakes create. For example, they use the analogy of the chef knife and how we are trying to ban everybody that wants to cook. But ladies and gentlemen, we believe that deepfakes, there's more than that. There's more to it than that, because we believe that all kind of deepfakes have some sort of harm, and it's not okay to propagate the idea that deepfakes are okay. We do not believe that that is okay, and that's why we want to use a blanket policy, or so-called as addressed by side opposition. All right, so today I'm going to do two things. Number one, I'm going to be rebutting the side opposition's points, problematic points, and I'm also going to give you a comparative analysis of the clashes that I have identified today. All right, so on the first point, right, they came and gave us a layout of the fact that there are miners that are doing deep fakes. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you of the whole characterization of deepfake. Deepfakes is a type of artificial intelligence where it is advanced, right? It's not just you photoshopping your face into another like actor's body or like Michael B. Jordan's body. That is not a deep fake. There is a line between what is considered fake and also deep fakes. So we don't believe that kids of 3 years old would be able to make deep fakes because of the complex AI that is involved in making deep fakes. Ladies and gentlemen, making deep fakes is not something very easy, and we believe that the opposition's idea that mostly minors are propagating deep fakes, that idea is completely false, and that is not deep fakes. That's not relevant to the debate today. All right, secondly, they've told us how deepfake is so useful for education, right? For movies, for entertainment, for education, like actors like Paul Walkers and such. We believe that it's not that big of a harm caused when we criminalize it, because there are alternatives to this. It's not that you impede the functions entirely. It's not that, oh, there's no alternative to replacing. There are body doubles, there are stunt doubles, there are so many alternatives that you can use in education and the film industry that would involve you will still be able to criminalize deepfakes and not have such a harm. All right. Thirdly, the reason, let me justify I'll justify us using a blanket policy, or so-called, that's what opposition calls our case, right? So we believe that in opposition is very problematic because there is a huge gray area of what is considered a mistake, what is considered a crime, what is considered serious. They have not underlined to us what would be considered serious, what would be criminalized. They've just told us that, oh, if it's serious, then we'll criminalize it. We have seen no kind of like proper measures, proper like fitting like, oh, what is going to be criminalized and not. That's why we want to introduce this policy of criminalizing all sorts of deepfakes, so that there isn't any kind of deepfakes on the internet, right? So yeah, that's why we believe that we should use we should criminalize deepfakes. Okay, now I'll proceed to my harm analysis. So ladies and gentlemen, both our teams want to achieve three things. Number one, we want to mitigate the harm caused by deepfakes. Number two, we want to create a better social media environment and a better environment in general. Number three, we want to prevent backlash towards the creators of deepfakes as well as the impersonated. All right, so which side filters out deepfakes better? All right, so on side opposition's case, they would like to rely on currently existing laws that so we believe that my second speaker has told you that currently existing laws are not enough. Deepfakes are still widespread on social media, because we've all, like all of us, we've all probably come across at least one deepfake on our time of searching online. Deepfakes are still quite berleluasa, quite they're widespread online. So whatever laws that are existing are clearly not enough to just curb the existence of deepfakes entirely. We believe that inside opposition case, there are still deepfakes that would not, there are still makers of deepfakes that would not suffer repercussions, and that's why we think it's not okay. So yeah, okay. On our side, criminalization would bring in governmental resources. Ladies and gentlemen, we would filter out content, we would filter out deepfake content that are harmful more effectively, because we have all this government help that the opposition side does not have, ladies and gentlemen. And then we would also have deterrence factor towards the maker of deepfakes. And what side opposition said just now, that there is no deterrence factor. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask you, if you know that you can get, like you can go to court for doing something, are you going to be more inclined to do it, or are you going to just do it. Obviously, you're going to be inclined not to do it because you know of the possible repercussions that exist if you could do it, right? So yeah, on our side, we believe that since there's a deterrence factor, people would not be inclined to decline. People would not be inclined to do deepfakes, and then we would mitigate the harm of deepfakes online better. Right? Which side creates a better social media environment? All right. So on the opposition side, they told us that, they want to let content that is subjectively funny. For example, the first speaker wanting to borrow Michael B. Jordan's funny body. So they think that some people think that it's funny, it's subjectively funny. And yes, we agree to that. But the key word is subjectively, meaning to say, as my first speaker has already highlighted to you, there are always there's a bunch of diversity of people online. It's not just one type of people. It's not just people who find things funny. There are also going to be the type of people who don't find this funny and are aware of the harms of deepfake. So what will happen online is the conflict between these two people. It's the unrest that will be caused due to the conflict, right? And that is what we're trying to prevent, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what opposition is not doing anything about. All right. So on our side, there would be little to no exposure of deepfakes online. So, no kind of demographic would be exposed to deepfakes. And so there will be no conflict or unrest pertaining these public figures, and the perception of these public figures would be safeguarded better on our side. All right, lastly, in our clash, which side prevents backlash to the creators as well as the makers of deepfakes themselves? All right, so side opposition has propagated a very we believe that it's problematic idea that making deepfakes are okay, because we believe that all kind of deepfakes, not just fakes, are deepfakes. They do some sort of identity theft. They do have some sort of impersonation to it, right? So so what would this impersonation do? Whether it is something, whether it's used for good, funny, or bad purposes, we do highlight that's identity theft. It's not what this real person did or said, and that we believe that that's not okay. But side opposition is propagating the idea that since we don't want to criminalize it, it's okay for people to do it. It's okay for all kinds of people to do it and spread it online, and we don't want to have that, right? So the extent of harm of deepfakes, ladies and gentlemen, is not predictable, because since the social media is such a big place, and as my first speaker has highlighted to you, the nature of virality of social media is so huge. So the extent of deepfakes, the harm that it creates, is not predictable. It could ruin someone's career. And a person with depression, for example, if their deepfake were to spread online, if they were to be humiliated, if they were to be embarrassed, it could lead to more drastic actions. It could even lead to them committing suicide. So you can't predict the extent of harm when there are deepfakes on social media. And that's why, all right, so on our side, we don't want unwanted attention to come to the people who are impersonated. So these people's reputation wouldn't be tarnished. We would be able to protect them and make them feel safe and comfortable online. And there would be no backlash to the creators, because there wouldn't be any deepfakes online in the first place. So we believe that, ladies and gentlemen, we've laid out the harm. We've laid out why we filter the harm of deepfakes better. We create a better social media environment, and we also prevent backlash to the impersonated. And that's why we believe that side government should take the win today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, third speaker from the government. We'll wait for the educators.
Okay, I'm good. All right. Yep, let's proceed.
All right. I'd like to call the opposition's third speaker to the floor.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I will now begin my speech. I greet the members of the floor. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we, the opposition team, came into this debate with several questions in mind that we hope that the government could perhaps answer. Among these questions were, why should we criminalize deepfakes? What harm do deepfakes actually do? And why should we make a new law for a subject that's already perfectly encompassed by other laws that already exist? Ladies and gentlemen, We, the opposition, feel that these questions have not been answered, and they have not been able to provide sufficient evidence to say that we should ban all forms of deepfake. This is further evidenced by the fact that their first speaker refused to take any POIs, and the rest of their speakers provided answers towards our POIs that were either unsatisfactory or ran so far from the point that it was unneeded. Firstly, before I get to my rebuttals, I would like to reaffirm our team's stance. That is, this House would not criminalize all forms of deepfake content because it is impractical. And there are already existing laws that criminalize very serious forms of deepfake content that is more feasible and targeted instead of blanket policy. Firstly, I would like to address one of the rebuttals provided by the first and third speaker. They have repeatedly stated that these deepfake softwares are far too complex for children to learn. If they are so complex, ladies and gentlemen, then why are they so widespread? If not anyone can use this software, how come they are condensed into applications that possibly a 3-year-old could even use on their smartphone? Secondly, they have repeatedly gone to use famous and influential people for examples. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not specifically focusing on defending the rights of only those who are influential, such as politicians. The government side has failed to realize the right of the general public, as well as failed to realize the benefits that deepfakes can bring in several other sectors when you're not bending to the will of several opinionated people.
POI?
Accepted.
Do you think that it's still right to preserve the right of the general public even when it involves impersonation of public figures?
Even when it involves impersonation of public figures? Well, relating to that, you have failed to explain how it can hurt certain public figures. You said that why should we add more scrutiny to these public figures when they already have it? Ladies and gentlemen, that is the point of the public. They are supposed to scrutinize public figures. What can we do to damage a public figure's image when sometimes they themselves are not fazed by it? When the matter of what these people are doing to them is so subjective that it really shouldn't matter to anyone who has a sane mind and is able to think for themselves. Why would you want to spend all day looking at your screen angry because someone else made a deepfake of someone else? That is the message that the government has delivered to us today. Now, on to rebutting the points of the government. The first point that the government has offered, yes, accepted.
Yeah, okay, so if a person made a deepfake content about like another teenager that led her to kill herself because of depression, do you think that that is a justifiable thing to do?
No, it's not. But can we really use such a one-off scenario? Sure, we as the opposition do care about mental health. But we cannot deny that some people are driven towards extreme lengths by things that are rather mundane or even not that harmful. So on to the first point of the government, the impacts of what happened when people view the bad deepfakes. Ladies and gentlemen, what are the impacts of bad deepfakes? They have failed to state. They have failed to state the bad impacts of deepfakes that aren't biased towards influential figures. We can tarnish the reputation of your favorite YouTuber. I'm sure even your favorite YouTuber would like to take part in this certain controversy. Because everyone has a subjective view on it. And of course, there are objectively bad deepfakes. Things like sexual harassment, impersonation. Things of that nature are already encompassed by the law. They're already criminal. And usually the deepfakes that we're talking about, the deepfakes that aren't encompassed by these laws, that the government has acknowledged are not encompassed by these laws for the sole reason, are deepfakes that are harmless in nature. Deepfakes that are made for comedic and entertainment purposes or even educational. The second point is that they want to preserve the authenticity and reputation of celebrities and leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, why are they so starstruck with the idea of protecting these famous minority of people? Why should we be so concerned about people who already receive criticism and know how to deal with it? Shouldn't we be considering the rights of the people more? Shouldn't we be considering how we're going to be impacting people by ruining their permanent records with things like jail records, jail time, law records? Do you realize you're going to be impacting the futures of these people, of these young children and young adults? And lastly, I would like to point out how the government is rather power hungry. They simply want to control everything. They want the easy way out to reduce harm. Ladies and gentlemen, the easy way out is never the best way out. The government simply wants to put this blanket policy in place because they don't see the light that there are good deepfakes that are beneficial. Why are they ignoring that there are so many good forms of deepfake that have benefited our society greatly, that have benefited us not only from a consumer entertainment standpoint, but from an educational standpoint? I would also like to point out the fact that their mechanism is incredibly weak. How are you going to enforce such a policy on millions of people? Are you really going to send the police officer to everyone? Everyone's doorstep? Are you really going to use state resources that should be applied elsewhere on something that really we shouldn't be prioritizing so much? The government is clearly power hungry because the only way they could achieve something like this is to border on implementing a system that is so close to the social credit system in China. Ladies and gentlemen, do we really want that type of oppression? So long story short, the government has ignored the existence of good deepfakes that can benefit us. They have ignored the fact that deepfakes are not that harmful and shouldn't be taken too seriously. Before I end my speech, I would like to reaffirm my team's stance that this House would not criminalize all forms of deepfake content because it is impractical, and therefore already existing laws that criminalize very serious forms of deepfake content, a more feasible and targeted instead of a blanket policy should be used. With that, I beg to oppose.
Thank you so much. Third speaker from the opposition. Now each team will be given a 3-minute time span to prepare your reply speech. And 3 minutes is up. Everybody looks raring to go. And without further ado, I'd like to call up the opposition speaker to present the opposition's reply.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, ma'am.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, throughout the last probably 50 minutes of this debate, I haven't heard a single reason why how side government would like to justify to criminalize all forms of deepfake content. They haven't proven to us why they should justify and criminalize all forms of deepfake content. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I get into it, let me just reaffirm my team's stand, right? To remind everybody of what side opposition is trying to fight for today. Now, we believe that this House will not criminalize all forms of deepfake content because we believe that it is impractical. There are already existing laws that criminalize very serious forms of deepfake content that is more feasible and targeted instead of a blanket policy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just remind you of side opposition's burden of proof for today. Our burden of what we need to prove to you and what we have already proven to you, in fact, is that status quo is already enough, and we have already proven to you why we should not criminalize all forms of deepfake content. We've given you 3 very strong arguments today, which is the first thing is we mentioned that we've explained to you how not all deepfake content is harmful, and that we shouldn't just criminalize every single form of deepfake just because there's a small percentage of harmful ones online. The second thing is we've already explained to you how side government's mechanism is impractical and how criminalizing all forms of deepfake is not practical in real life, ladies and gentlemen. And the third thing we have proven to you today is deepfake and why we must criminalize all forms because there are benefits to deepfakes that outweigh the detriments. Now, if that's not enough to convince you, ladies and gentlemen, on why we want today's motion, let's talk about side opposition. That some what is the burden of proof? The side government, they were not able to prove how criminalizing all forms of deepfake will do our society just, but they haven't even acknowledged the fact that they haven't even acknowledged the keyword of today's motion, which is that we are going to be criminalizing all forms. Ladies and gentlemen, how is this answering today's motion? Now, they gave us 4 very weak points. The first thing was that they were talking about conflict and unrest online. Ladies and gentlemen, this is completely refutable by our case line. And in fact, refutable by my third point. There are so many advantages, ladies and gentlemen, so many advantages to deepfake. Not every single deepfake content is going to cause conflict and unrest online. And ladies and gentlemen, even if it does, our case line has already proven to solve this issue at hand. So what side government is trying to prove is absolutely nothing, ladies and gentlemen. The second thing they talked about is perception towards consumers. Ladies and gentlemen, they have failed again to acknowledge the fact that regular people use deepfake for harmless things, ladies and gentlemen. They have failed to prove that make up minority, famous people, ladies and gentlemen. The third thing they talk about is criminalization is important, which, ladies and gentlemen, is not even relevant to the motion. They wanted to prove to us how criminalization is important. Let me remind you about what this debate is about today, ladies and gentlemen. The debate today is whether we should criminalize all forms of deepfake content. And ladies and gentlemen, on top of that, let's clear under their paradigm, right? It's completely impractical in the first place. The 4 things they want to they think that it's bad for the authenticity and the reputation of people online. Ladies and gentlemen, people will always be a subject to public scrutiny, ladies and gentlemen, and this is completely rebuttable by a case line as well. If it's so bad, ladies and gentlemen, it will definitely violate one of the existing laws today, and it's already proven that it can solve side government's issues. So all the issues that side government has brought upon today is completely solved by side opposition's case line and side opposition's case structure. So basically, side government here has been giving us very anti-case structures from the beginning because they're not even fighting for anything. So, ladies and gentlemen, before I step down, I would like to reaffirm my team's stand on the motion that we believe that this House would not criminalize all forms of deepfake because it is impractical, ladies and gentlemen. There are already existing laws that criminalize very serious forms of deepfake content that is more feasible and targeted instead of a blanket policy. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I proudly oppose to the motion.
Thank you so much, second speaker from the opposition party. Now I'd like to invite the government speaker to present the government's reply.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
My speech will start in 3, 2, One. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to realize that in this world, there are vigilantes, and these vigilantes, they might be murdering, bad people in the world. They might be eliminating rapists. They might be eliminating drug dealers. However, it is still murder at the end of the day. So what we're trying to say here is that deepfake content is impersonation at the end of the day. Whatever we're talking about, whatever benefits of deepfake content we're talking about at the end of the day, it is still impersonation. It is still fabricating things that are not true. They are not what those people have said or intended to say at the end of the day. That is why we're trying to tell you today that impersonation is bad. All forms of impersonation is bad. And what are we trying to say today? Today we're trying to say that any sort of benefits of deepfakes that side opposition has brought up, right? We do acknowledge the benefits of deepfakes. However, we think that they are replaceable. However, we think that it is not exclusive to only deepfakes. You want to recreate historical figures. Just use actors. Why do you need to use deepfake? The technology of using making deepfake contents when there's a possibility that it might go wrong. We want to eliminate that tiny bit of possibility that it will be used for malpurposes, and that is what we're fighting for at the end of the day. And instead, opposition also talked about how there's already status quo has already implemented mechanisms to actually deal with this super detrimental harms at the end of the day. However, we don't think that status quo is enough because of the rapidly developing state of technological advancements. You're making more deepfakes. Deepfakes are more and more prevalent in today's society. And let's just talk about some technical issues that happen in the debate, right? Number one, they ignore the fact that there is a gray area in determining what is okay and what is not. Side opposition talked about how, sexual issues or, raping issues are deepfaking these contents is actually wrong. What about things that you're damaging people's reputation? What about things that are, damaging people's mental health? What about things that you're damaging the image of a certain person's business at the end of the day? It is not stated under the law that it's wrong. However, we do believe that because it is a deepfake content, because it is a fabrication of the truth, it should be criminalized at the end of the day, no matter what sort of deepfake content that this is at the end of the day. And number two, they ignored also the uncertainty in the magnitudes of harms caused. You can't say that because it is subjectively funny, it can be allowed online, because the fact that it is actually subjective at the end of the day is because it's that it can actually cause harm to a lot of people in a magnitude that we don't know at the end of the day. Something that seems harmless to us may prove to be really, really detrimental to another person. And that is what we don't want at the end of the day. Number three, they also ignore the fact that there's a possibility of escalation of these deepfake contents. And we have already been clarifying in our whole three speakers, we've already been clarifying about the harms of deepfake contents. That is what we're trying to tell you today. We're talking about how these influential figures would be defamated and they would be used for malpurposes. And for the communists themselves, they would also suffer implications such as mental health issues, such as ruining their reputation or ruining their life or ruining their career at the end of the day, right? And side opposition also talks about how, you shouldn't send juveniles to prison just because they did something that's funny, right? So basically what opposition is saying that we can just excuse juveniles from crimes just because they are children. That's not the message that we want to try to send today at the end of the debate. We're trying to say that impersonation is a crime and will always be a crime, and we are going to criminalize all forms of it, right? And they also ignore the effectivity of actually filtering without the help of the government at the end of the day. A little summary of what we're trying to say here today. Number one, the propagation of deepfake content is really far and really wide, especially on social media, and we want to prevent these type of propagation from happening. We want to prevent the amplification of hatred towards the public figures, and we also want to prevent implications towards minors or towards the commoners people at the end of the day. Number two, we've talked about the necessity of criminalization, how it gives us access to government resources, and how we are able to mitigate the issue even better. And number three, we also talked about how we want to preserve the authenticity and also and the reputation of certain individuals. So let's do a little, let's just look at what is the best thing that could happen on side opposition. Fine, deepfake comedy might be used for educational purposes or comedy purposes, but where is the line? We don't know what is the line that draws between the gray area. We are unable to determine that, and we think that the best way to do it, the best way to deal with it is to criminalize all forms of deepfake content. And with that, I end my speech.
Thank you so much, government's second speaker. Thank you so much. Now, let's all just take a break while our educators confer amongst themselves.
Okay, to all adjudicators, you'll be assigned to a break room, and after you're done, you can just go back to the main room. Please do not exit the main room. Thank you. and I will let you in now. Okay.
Okay, to the honorable judges, I will assign you into the breakout room to offer the result. And please, I would like to remind that you have to leave the breakout room only, not leave the meeting until
Hi, good job on the debate. You guys were great.
Yeah, good. That was great. That was nice. I like it. Interesting to watch as a result.
Thank you. You guys did great too.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
You
guys
guys did
did
great
too.
too.
It was intense, but it was great.
Yeah.
That's what we
Y'all
came
had-
for, right?
Y'all had serious expressions. You guys should like just.
I know, right? I know. As
I'm
a-
not gonna lie. Y'all should go. You should go into parliament. I'm not gonna lie. You guys can do a better job at debating compared to parliament.
Yes.
Which school are y'all from? Are you all like from 5?
Yeah, we're all from 5, but we're all from different schools.
Oh wow. So a composite team lah. Oh, great.
And yeah, and some of us are from different districts.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
cool.
Are you guys from the same school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Except one reserve. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. You can just communicate easily.
Yeah. True.
Oh yeah, where did you guys get the background, by the way?
We
We
did
had,
ourselves.
Oh, wow,
Uh,
okay.
we had stage
Oh.
back then, so they just gave us the background. Then we just,
Wow,
yeah.
power move.
We all have like nice backgrounds though.
This
It's
is
from
the
another
background from
competition.
Another
Yeah,
competition.
it's from another competition.
We're just recycling it.
But it looks cool.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
clean. Yeah.
What is the other back?
Hi.
VIR 2021?
It's Virtual Discourse 2021 or something like that. I forgot.
Yeah.
So I legit thought it was like a background for debate. So it's like really
Nah,
nice.
nah. It's
Yeah.
another competition.
Is it your first time to nationals or
It's our first time to nationals.
Oh.
What about you guys? I feel like you guys are
It's our
experienced.
second time.
yeah.
Time here.
No
We're,
wonder.
yeah, we're in form 4, form
From
3,
3.
form 2, yeah.
What?
They're
Yeah.
from
So good though. Oh, the 3 of us are from KK, Kota Kinabalu, and then the other 2 are from Sandakan.
Give Harry Potter some attention, guys. Wait, is Harry Potter getting recorded as well?
Wait, are you guys in the same like space, or are you guys in different spaces?
The 3 of us are the ones that are in Kota Kinabalu are in one space, and the ones in Sandakan are in one space.
Oh,
Oh,
Like,
that's
yeah,
cool.
because Form 5 is already opening. Yeah.
Yeah.
We also like try to find a place, but like because we're sort of like underage, so we can't really go anywhere. Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, we also kind of struggle finding a place, but they got like Pahang.
Yeah, they won't let us go back to school.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that sucks.
It just hits different when you guys are in the same room. It just feels
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Easy to communicate.
yeah. Right.
Fam, why you touching grass, fam?
Because he has it for months.
Oh, bloody.
Such a tree. I don't think grass works anymore.
You know what does? I'm not. Grass. Touch the grass. Touch it.
I mean, after the debate, maybe touch some grass.
I hope he would, but oh yeah, guys, you said you were like you represented 2 times, right? So
Yeah.
you guys represented in 2018 lah, right?
2019.
Oh, my maths.
Yeah.
In 2018, I was still in Sekolah Rendah, so
So that means you guys represent tingkatan 3.
Two. Form two.
We were from 2, she was from
Wow,
1.
damn, that's respect, yo. Form 2.
Yeah. I mean, the competition in Pahang isn't really that great. So I guess it was easier. Yeah.
Nah, I don't believe that.
nah, it's actually not that much.
To be humble lah, guys. Come on.
Wan Ying, you are muted.
Okay. Why does this thing keep Okay. All right. Hello. Okay, we are back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the oral adjudication first, and then I would announce the result at the end of it. Okay. So generally the issue, the motion here is that whether or not we are going to criminalize all deepfake content. The keyword being all. Okay, whether or not we're going to criminalize, that means it's going to be criminal. All right. That means regardless of your age, regardless of whatever, we're going to make you a criminal, whatever it is. So that is the issue that the debaters have to deal with. So government will of course say, yes, we're going to do it. Opposition will tell you, no, we're not going to do that. All right. And you've brought up points in your substantive. Okay. The government brought up like the intent of propagation, you know, how it creates conflict, the negative impact caused by deepfake. And then you also brought up why it is necessary to criminalize all deepfake content. And you said that it is a deterrent. That's why you want to criminalize all the deepfake content. Opposition came back with the counter that one, it's not being practical, okay? Two, there already existing law that that is already, you know, dealing with people who actually breach this kind of how do you say forbidden area in the cyber world, okay? And you talked about how it's entertaining, how it could be used in a creative manner to make life more interesting, more engaging, all right? And you brought up the fact that it could be used for education, all right? So there was engagement between the two teams. That is good, all right? A tip though, that if you set up a case wherever you are in the next round, set it up clearly. All right. It might be a good idea not to have too many layers. Okay. And in the end, you find that you get lost in the maze yourself. All right. So set it up clearly. Sometimes less is more. It goes on that premise sometimes. Sometimes less is more. Give us a clear one, a clear two. That's it. And this is what we're talking about. You know, bring it out clearly. Lay it out to us. Okay. So, and yeah, opposition also. If you're in the opposition, listen to how the mechanism of the case has been set up. Don't like it, oppose it. You like it, you accept it. Okay. So in the next round, be alert to that. Okay. And the third speakers, both the whips. All right. I like the fact that there was engaging. The rebuttals was good. Good job, Guthrie. You did a good job in the engagement. There was a counter attack. All right. Now make you sound like a terrorist in counter attack. Oh my goodness. But you did engage in that sense. And here is where you create doubt. And that is good. You're able to create doubt. Octree, okay. You ask questions. You ask questions. Your strategy seems to be questions upon question upon question. Don't stop there. Don't stop there. You ask question is good. Trying to create doubt. Elaborate on it. That would help better. That would help better. Okay? So, in general, that is what it is. The opposition laid out the case. In the beginning, there was consistency between first and second op. It's very good. it's like, how do I say, the synergy was there. And we like that. All right. Government, you came back with strong rebuttals, you came back with strong points, but the adjudicators felt it was a little too late. That consistency should have been from the beginning. All right. So having said all that, I'll go for the best debater first. The best debater for this round is I never got his name, but Shen, correct?
Yeah,
All right.
that's correct. Thank you.
Gov2, and the winning team on a split vote goes to the opposition. The motion falls. All right. Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Back to you.
Thank you so much, educator. Congratulations to both debating parties and to specifically Sabah as the opposition party. Great to see you guys going all the way towards the next preliminary round. And with that, I'd like to conclude the debate.
All right, good luck for your next
All
round,
the best
guys.
for the next round.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
All right, goodbye.
Okay.
Well
See
done,
ya.
guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.